What cheer, y'all? Welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, we have reached the end of the Derby Trail, and now it's time to start deep diving into the contenders. So, what we have as sort of a jump off point is our Kentucky Derby 151 top 20, and this will be the last top 20 as we before we start really analyzing all the contenders individually. And just as a note, we will do our elements of handicapping, form, class, speed, and pace for all the contenders. We're also going to have individual profiles for all the contestants for the Kentucky Derby. So be on the lookout for those individual postings. Once we get all those out, then we'll get into our deep dive with form, class, speed, and pace. I've already done some preliminary work, and there have been, as there always are, some interesting surprises that I didn't expect to see, but will certainly impact how we view the contenders. So we'll look at our points leaders, and this is the leaderboard, as I see it, of the horses that we are slated to run. And so you see, now I've highlighted Final Gambit and Flying Mohawk. Now, I suppose they're going to run, but still the fact that they're more turf heavy, you never know about that. The other thing is Citizen Bull may be a scratch as well, given his running style and given what he's going to have to deal with. So there still may be some changes here, but this is what we have right now. Because of defections, we've got Grande and Matticat Road have drawn in, and now we have to account for the foreign horses, and we know Luxor Cafe is going to run as well as Admired Daytona. Heart of Honor is out, so we may see him in the Belmont, which would be pretty interesting because I think he's a horse with not without talent. So that's our points, the way I have it as of today, April 14th, and we'll go through our. Oh, and then we have our on the bubble horses. Now, if we have more defections, Neo Equos would be the next one in, followed by Render Judgment. Sadly, I think Baeza's probably out. However, you never know. I mean, they may not Render Judgment or Neo Equos may be off the trail, and if they are, then moves up Baeza, get one scratch, he's in the race. And that changes the complexion of things dramatically. As you guys know, I love that horse. So we'll do our top 20, starting with the bottom 5 and work our way up. Flying Mohawk, again, I thought is a pretty intriguing horse. He certainly seems to be improving. Whether or not he can run well enough, stepping up in class remains to be seen, but he's kind of interesting. I probably like him a little more than Final Gambit, but the fact that Final Gambit did win the Jeff Ruby and has displayed a monster kick, he's kind of a wild card. We don't know if he's going to run on as well on dirt. I have a feeling he probably will not. Excuse me. And this appears to me more of kind of an owner's decision to put the horse in the race. And usually when that's the case, you can throw him out. So I'm pretty close to tossing Final Gambit. I'd rather see him on turf. Admired Daytona won the UAE Derby, but it was bereft of a lot of major contenders. From what I've gleaned, the speed figure is kind of average for that race. So he looks kind of like a borderline horse to me. But I'll put him ahead of Final Gambit and Flying Mohawk because he has dirt form more than anything else. Citizen Bull obviously has taken a precipitous drop after that Santa Anita Derby. I just didn't like that race at all. I don't think anybody did. He has been the beneficiary of soft leads, including in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which, again, has not come back as a good race at all. So whether he may not even run at this point, I just think that it was indicative. He finally got some pressure, and he wilted. And so you can't really like him now moving into a field of 20, whereas he's been running in shorter fields without a lot of pressure. Now he's going to get tons of it, so not looking good for him. Matticat Road is in, and this horse is not without talent. I always kind of like him, but the question is, can he be as effective if he has to rate as opposed to being on the lead? His most effective races the Rebel Stakes, and in some regards, the Florida Derby have been his best races, and he was on the lead both times. So when they tried to rate him in California, didn't work out terribly well. He did rate as a maiden, but then again, you have to think about the class level. So Matticat Road is kind of iffy, and the distance may be a little much for him as well. American Promise is holding pretty solid at 15. He is an intriguing horse to me. Now, the Virginia Derby was around one turn. That's entirely true. But he's not 3 years old yet. And he's displayed enough talent to me that, if he continues to mature, then he could be a player in this race. Going to have it tough being up on the front end. He's going to have a lot of horses to deal with. But to me, he's kind of a sleeper in here for the coach. And I'm very interested to see how he trains up to the Derby. East Avenue certainly ran better in the Bluegrass Stakes, without a doubt, although he was awful keen on the front end. I think if he does that in the Derby, he's not going to be there at the end, for sure. We still don't know if he's a horse for the course or not, if it's Keeneland and nowhere else, because he really hadn't run that great, aside from his maiden race, anywhere else. He's had excuses. He had an excuse in the Juvenile, but not in the Risen Star. And I thought that was could be the telling race, especially when you consider how well he was training up to that race. So East Avenue, to me, is another one who's really sketchy heading into the Derby. Chunk of Gold has just, you have to love this horse. I mean, he's exceeded expectations without a doubt. We've liked him all the way along, and he hasn't disappointed. The question is, can he run in a big field like the Derby, and can he take another step forward? If he can, that would put him as a horse you want to use in your exotics. He's a very interesting horse from that perspective. Plus, he should be up amongst the leaders, and tactically that might be a pretty good place to be. So Chunk of Gold is a pretty interesting horse. River Thames, the Bluegrass, I mean, I think we saw some positives in that he was able to rate, but we saw some negatives too in that he wasn't able to really do very much in the stretch. He did have some pace to run to. And while this horse is extremely classy, I think it does speak to the limitations he has distance-wise. And I think a mile and a quarter is going to be awful tough for a really nice horse. And I would rather see in the Pat Day Mile like so many others. Pat Day Mile is probably going to be a hell of a good race. Publisher continues to progress. And that Arkansas Derby, he got out of trouble. He was off the rail. He didn't have any kickback. He was to the outside. He's going to lose a ton of ground if he does that in the Derby, but he keeps moving forward. And so he's an interesting horse to me. And the fact that he's still a maiden and he's 11 on our list, I think that speaks a great deal to how top-heavy this Derby is this year. It's, in other years, I don't know if he would be this high. So, but he's an interesting horse, and I'm keeping an eye on him for sure. Number 10, we're going to put Luxor Cafe. By all accounts, his speed figures are pretty close to maybe the second tier of horses in this year's Derby. The last race he won in Japan, he really didn't face a whole lot, but he did draw off very well. He did what a good horse is supposed to do. So he does have quality. Whether or not it's good enough to factor in the race remains to be seen, of course, but I think he looks like a pretty good one. And again, he might be sneaky good for the bottom of the exotics. I don't think he would have to take a move forward to get to the top. But one interesting to think about. Tistastic, I think the biggest advantage he has is that he will keep running. Whether or not he's got that top end to finish, I don't know. I doubt it. But he's going to keep running, and he's good. He's got some quality. The Louisiana races, you have to go back and kind of question them quality-wise. I don't know how good they really were, but the fact is that this horse is getting better. Whether or not he can take another step forward to be a prime contender, I'm not so sure about that. But Tistastic is in the top 10. Burnham Square, I dropped a couple spots. I liked the fact that he rebounded from the Fountain of Youth, where I still didn't think he ran that badly, to get up for the Bluegrass. He will not need to take another step forward, but I don't see any reason why he can't. It seems like Ian Wilkes was saying he didn't really tune him up all the way for the Fountain of Youth. So we got a better version of him in the Bluegrass. I still don't like the fact that he comes from as far back as he does. That makes me question whether or not he can make a move forward and really be a grade 1 type of horse. That's my big concern. But I really like this horse, and I'll be watching him as well. Grande ran a phenomenal Wood Memorial. He really did. I mean, if you consider how much ground he lost around both turns and was still able to pony up a second, I think was really impressive. He actually was the best horse in the day. I thought Rodriguez ran a very good race, but I thought Grande, given what he had to do to get second, I thought was an outstanding effort. So he's one on the come, and he's one we certainly want to watch. Cole Battle, he just keeps doing his thing. I'm not going to knock him for the Arkansas Derby. I don't think he was tuned up all the way. He didn't need the race, and he still ran third. I like the way he runs. That the early move that he makes, getting into the race earlier than quite a few others would, I think is extremely intriguing. Now, he's going to have to take another move forward, as many of them will. But, you got to like the grit of this horse. He seems to bring it every time, and he's one you certainly want to be thinking about in the exotics. And, stranger things have happened. He's got an outside shot at winning, and what a great story that would be. Our top 5... Sandman, I've dropped a couple of spots, and when we get into the elements of handicapping, I'll explain why, and I think it'll become apparent to you. Visually, he's great. He just looks like he's a freight train. He reminds me of Tapit Trice to a degree. He's that straight ahead kind of runner. I don't think he has much tactical speed, but he's a bulldozer. And the question is, of course, what happens in a field of 20 with 150,000 people screaming and yelling for a horse who's a little shaky mentally. And I'm not so sure how good the Arkansas Derby really was, to be honest. So he drops a spot. Moving up Rodriguez. Now, of the early runners, he would have to be the one I think can stick around. That Wood Memorial was outstanding. It really was in many regards. Now, he didn't run against much. That's true, and nobody really pressed him. But it was the way he did it. And they finally put him in a race where he was allowed to do what he does. I have been on this horse ever since the Bob Lewis. I really liked that effort, even though he finished second, because, the way he had to re-rally, the way they had to take him back, and he still moved forward. There's definitely a lot of quality here. Now, what's the issue? Well, the issue is, why did Bob Baffert move him to New York? To get away from bigger crowds. Well, what are you going to get on Derby Day? So he still may be a little on the immature side. He does have a tendency to act up, and that would certainly compromise his efforts in the Derby. But Rodriguez has got a world of talent, and got an outside shot. He needs some things to work for him, but has an outside shot at winning it. Tapan Street is one that I really like, the Florida Derby. It was a really solid effort following a solid effort in the Holy Bull. He's another one that looks to be moving in the right direction. I think the training pattern is really what I like. The fact that he skipped a race and now he's coming in to his third start should be a peak effort for Brad Cox. And again, because he's will be up amongst the leaders, that really gives him an excellent chance if he can take a step forward. So Tappan Street is I think he's just not a sleeper because everybody knows about it, but he's one who's got a really good chance to take this Derby down. Sovereignty, can't say I like the Florida Derby a whole lot, but I also know Bill Mott, the way he does things, and I have no doubt this horse will run the best he possibly can on Derby Day. He will be coming from off the pace. Always difficult, going to have to work out a trip, going to lose a lot of ground in the stretch, but I think this horse has a ton of talent, and I like him a lot. He's got a really good chance in the Derby. We'll need a little help, but so will our number one horse, Journalism. Journalism, the Sanity of the Derby. Well, he wasn't at his best, and he still won the race. That's what a good horse does. He handled kickback. He handled traffic as much as you can in a 5-horse field, and that's really going to be the big question. Can he be as effective in a big field? But obviously, we have to say that about all the horses for the most part. Can they handle a field of 20? I think on talent alone, he towers over this field. He's without a doubt the best horse in the race. And, Mike McCarthy, excellent trainer. I know this one's going to fire a bullet and be ready to roll. And so Journalism, a pretty obvious number one. So memorialize our top 20 for you to take a look at it. I got asterisk by Final Gambit and Flying Mohawk because one of them may still back out. Calmer heads may prevail, just saying, hey, listen, he's just not as good on dirt. It's more so for Final Gambit than Flying Mohawk, but I have a feeling the owners still have Derby fever, so they're probably in the race. So to me, once you get past the top 4, there's a pretty big drop, in my opinion. So the amount of horses that you want to use, I think, is going to be probably pretty short. When we look at everything else, form, class, speed, and pace, it may get even shorter. Just the way it's looking so far. But there it is. I mean, it's a top-heavy field, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. So now we take a look at our race shape. This is what it looks like right now heading into the Derby. You see, we've got 4 horses, all who need the lead. No, American Promise, not so much, but Citizen Bull, East Avenue, and Rudd both have to have the lead. So who gets it? That's a big question mark. Rodriguez, don't know he necessarily has to have the lead, but it's preferable. Let's put it that way. And American Promise, I think, will be right behind them, all things being equal. And then it'll be just a question of if he's good enough. And we look tactically, you look at our off-the-pace runners, and I think Tapan Street looks really good amongst all of those. He and Coal Battle I would put as the top 2 stalkers who should be in really good position, and then it's just a question if they're good enough at that point. And both have a claim without a doubt. The other ones, not so much. River Thames probably as good talent-wise as Coal Battle or Tapan Street, but I think the distance is probably going to do him in. So that's an interesting group. You look at our mid-pack horses, Grande, Journalism, Publisher, Burnham Square. I think that's where it starts getting a little tougher. And you can see, the further back you get in the running lines, the more talent there is. But the horses that Journalism would have to pass, I think he can, with the exception of maybe Rodriguez, I think he can get by all of them without any problem. Publisher is, he's an X factor. We'll see if he can take another move forward. Burnham Square, the more you look at it, I'm not quite as high on him as I was, but hey, if he can take another step, we'll see. And then Sovereignty, I don't like having multiple closers, but that's what you get in the Derby. Of them, I think Sovereignty is clearly the best, without a doubt. Tistastic, I think, will just keep on running, and he may be able to pass quite a few in the stretch because he'll keep running and they're going to keep him out of harm's way. So it's an interesting race shape. I think you've got the nice part about it, you would say, is you've got prime players in each of the 4 running styles, E, EP, P, and S. So that makes it kind of a cool race from that perspective. So there it is. That's our final top 20 before we start doing our deep dive for the Kentucky Derby. Hope this helps with your own configuration, your own assessment of the horses coming in. And we will have individual profiles that will start this week, and so be on the lookout for those. Once we've concluded them, we will get into our elements of handicapping: form, class, speed, and pace. Those of you who've been with me all the way know how that works. And we will judge each horse based upon each of those 4 elements, and then we will put it all together finally to conclude who are the horses that we like and who we don't for the Derby. So be on the lookout for that. Lots of content coming. We're going to try to do it for the Oaks as well, time permitting. So much more content from Red at the Wire, so stay tuned for that. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.